and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is another video in the mini-series of Solved Nobody, and this one is particularly frustrating and heartbreaking, and the ending of this case and what this family has suffered through, I don't know how they're not all completely falling to pieces. So today's video is on April Jones. April disappeared on October 1st, 2012 at the age of 5 after being seen entering the van of a stranger near her home. The day she went missing, she just had an average day. She went to school, then she went to swim lessons, and then her parents went to a parents' dinner at her school. And after they returned at about 7 p.m., she asked her mother if she could go out and play with friends outside. Now, her mother at first was hesitant and said no, it was already 7 p.m., it was going to be dark soon. But she decided to go ahead and let her daughter go out and play, and unfortunately, this would be the last time they would see April alive. She was riding her bicycle close to her home in Brynagog Estate in Wales. She was with one other friend that I think was 7 years old when she was approached by a car. I'm not exactly sure what the conversation was, but for one reason or another, April entered the vehicle. The man and April drove off. She was only supposed to be out for maybe 20 minutes, so when she didn't come home, her parents panicked. And when they asked the friend what happened, she said that April had gotten into the car with a stranger and drove off, so she was immediately reported missing, and this started one of the largest searches in British history. They spoke to the 7-year-old little girl she was with, who described this van, but it was really a Range Rover, and described the man that was in it. And the next day, a local man named Mark Bridger was arrested in connection with April's case. So kind of like the Danielle Jones video, interesting that they have the same last names, but immediately almost the killer was caught. And this is, I think, again, what's so frustrating about these cases is that they seem to be solved so much faster than most missing persons and murder cases, and suspects are found within a couple of days. Yet, how can the body just be gone? But we'll get further into that in just a little bit. Mark Bridger owned a Range Rover, and this is the car that was seen taking April. When he was picked up by police, the first thing he said was, "I think I know what this is about." Bridger had been living a pretty rough life. He had enrolled in college growing up, but soon lost interest and stopped going to his classes. He had 6 children from different relationships, all of which never ended up working out. He had many run-ins with the law over things like battery, illegal firearms. And in months before April went missing, he actually became an alcoholic and spent majority of his days binge drinking. He had also developed an inappropriate obsession with young girls. The day that April had disappeared, he had received a text message that morning from his current girlfriend breaking up with him. She said it wasn't working anymore and she wanted nothing to do with him, and this sent him down a black hole. As I said before, this was a common theme in his life, and I think he was just tired of it. He called out of work that day and instead spent the day messaging tons of girls on Facebook, asking them if they wanted to go out for a drink with him. He spent an alarmingly long time looking at a picture of a 14-year-old girl in the local area. He just was exhibiting bad behavior, and he obviously didn't have any good intention behind it. That night, he attended the same parents' dinner that April's parents did. His daughter went to the exact same school, and he left after about 20 minutes. Now, keep in mind, he'd been drinking this entire day. When he left the parents' dinner, he actually approached a group of about 3 10-year-old girls and asked them if they wanted to come and have a sleepover with his daughter. Obviously, this alarmed the young girls and they freaked out a little bit, so he sped off. And unfortunately, the next place he went was straight to April. He pulled up to April, who was riding her bike, and they had some sort of conversation. The neighbor said she wasn't worried because, again, she was 7 years old, but April got into the car with a happy face, So she assumed it was someone she knew and that April was safe and everything was fine. But that was not the case. CCTV footage caught him driving away from the estate, and at 8:30 he was seen by a neighbor backing into his driveway. No one really knows what happened after this, and this is going to torment her family. This is a time when I want to sit down with the person guilty and just shake the answers out of them because it is so frustrating. Bridger claims he was so intoxicated that he has absolutely no idea what happened that night after he picked up April. The only thing that's known is that the morning after April went missing, 3 witnesses saw him carrying a black bag in the field near his home, and he somehow had an answer to this. I think he said he was using the restroom or something crazy that made no sense. And at this point, everyone was already desperately searching for April, and that's when he was seen again walking along the riverbank, and he was approached by a few women who asked him why he wasn't searching for April, because according to them, he didn't seem to be walking like he was searching. He just was acting kind of funky. And his answer was, "Oh, I am searching for April. You know, has anything been found yet?" He just kind of played along with it. But 2 hours later, he ended up arrested. So he was seen in a field with a big black bag, and he was seen walking along a river. So that already says no good news. And even though he claims he doesn't remember anything, he was in 2 places where someone could dispose of a body pretty easily. And this was the day after, so he couldn't have been drunk still unless he just binge drank the entire night through, which is a possibility. On May 30th, 2013, Bridger was convicted of April's murder despite her body never being found. They extensively searched everywhere they possibly could. During the trial, he did confess to murdering her. He didn't seem to hide that the entire time. He claimed that it was an accident and that he doesn't have any idea what exactly he did with her. Bridger says that he accidentally hit April with his car and that he planned on putting her in his car to go and take her to get help. But somewhere along the way, he lost her body. I don't know. He just seems to be making things up or just taking guesses because of how drunk he was, but he forgot where he put her and then ended up doing something with the body that he doesn't remember. He was adamant about the fact that he never sexually assaulted her, and he didn't really give his reasoning for picking her up to begin with. But he did admit that he cleaned all of the blood off of his car, and he also says he remembers washing the clothes he was wearing. So I find it interesting that he remembers cleaning up everything, but conveniently doesn't remember what he did with her. In the trial, it was revealed that he didn't just look up indecent pictures. He actually had been Googling, I think the day of, pictures of deceased young girls after murder. So he seemed to have an obsession not just with young girls, but with murdering them based on the pictures he was looking at. And what made my stomach turn even more was the fact that he actually had pictures of April on his computer along with her older sister, which to me says he was using his daughter at school as a gateway to get to all of these young girls. And he was basically planning out everything to abduct one, murder one. He had very clear intentions in his mind. I think he was so upset with the way his life was, and with his girlfriend breaking up with him, it just triggered him, and he knew it was going to happen sooner or later. Forensic experts came forward and said that fragments of April's bones as well as blood tested to match April's DNA were found scattered all over his cottage, and pieces of her skull were found after being set fire in his fireplace. He had once worked in a slaughterhouse, and police believe that he used those skills to dispose of her body, and he burned some in the fire, maybe took most of the ashes and put them in the river or put them in one of the fields that he was seen in. He did miss a few fragments of bone in the fireplace, which fortunately for the prosecution was able to nail him to her murder despite not having a body. Because of this, not only was he convicted of murder, but he was also charged of perverting the course of justice because he disposed of her body more than likely in a way that they never would find it. Despite his desperate attempts at claiming it an accident, the jury gave him the full punishment of life in prison. While in prison, he has maintained the fact that it was an accident and that he doesn't remember specific things to most of his cellmates, but he did in fact tell the priest there that he dumped April in the river, which he has denied ever since saying it. He had very clear intentions and all of the proof was on his laptop. It was not just a spur of the moment thing. He acted out fantasies that he had been staring at for hours on his computer. The family is forever going to be tortured by this. While he is in jail, again, they have no body. They can't lay this little girl to rest. And her mother said she will forever hate the fact that she let April go out and play that night. And I hate it for her. I hate it for her because as a parent, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know, but that will never ease her suffering. There's nothing you could say to her that would make her feel better about that decision. Her older sister almost drank herself to death battling with the grief of her younger sister. She felt like she should have done more. She's supposed to be the big sister, the protector. It's a horrible situation, and as if it couldn't get any worse for them. Just this year, I think just a few weeks ago, their dad suffered from a very rare brain disease called encephalitis, and he actually forgot April went missing, and they had to tell him. When he came to, he asked why April hadn't visited him in the hospital. He said he couldn't understand what he did, why she wouldn't come, and he had to learn like it was the first time ever that his daughter had been murdered. Imagine going through it once, forgetting, and then having to go through it all over again. It had been years where they had been trying to manage their grief and they were trying to go through the process of healing, and he had to start all the way over again from square one. And the family, I just feel so horribly for the family, and it's cases like this that make me so mad at people who just think it's okay to do things like this. People who have no morals, people who have no conscience, they don't care, and it makes me infuriated. This little girl had a whole life to live ahead of her, and now her entire family blames himself for her death because he made a stupid decision because he couldn't get his life together, and it pisses me off to no end. In 2017, they did a short documentary where they pleaded for him to give up what he did to April and where she is so that they can at least bury her. Family is trying to create a law called April's Law that would require all sex offenders to be registered in a database for life. Now, we have something like that here, but they don't have that over in Wales. It would also require that search engines had better control over inappropriate images and had better scanning software to where they could get things like that down offline as fast as possible. And lastly, it will ask for harsher punishments to those who are caught with indecent images of children. Now, I'm not exactly sure the status, but that sounds like a pretty good law to me that needs to be put into place, and I really hope something is done about it because at this point, that's what they have left. April's older sister said, I wasn't able to help her, but if I could at least help one other young girl by putting this law into place, then I will be satisfied with that. And I hope that the family gets to put this law in place so they feel like they helped someone. You know, imagine going the rest of your life feeling like you could have done more. I think this law being put into place and helping someone will help ease their pain so much. I'm hoping that he eventually just sucks it up and says where April is and what exactly happened. Everyone always says sometimes not knowing is worse than knowing. I think that that's the case here. I send all of my thoughts and love to that family. They have gone through hell and back quite literally. And despite how weak they may feel, I don't think they realize exactly how strong they are. Just like I said with the Danielle Jones case, if you notice anything strange, if you lived in this area at the time and saw anything, or you're in the area now, just think back. Think if you witnessed anything strange, if you remember this man, if you saw him doing anything weird, you saw someone acting strangely in the area, please, please report it. Think back, help this family get the last bit of closure that they desperately need. I'm gonna go ahead and go, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please hit the thumbs up button. Also hit the subscribe button to become a member of the Hallen fam, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.